Okay. That's good. Got the right camera. No. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning.
And everyone else, let's see who else is here. I gotta change my name from Rotary host or whatever I am here. No, I don't remember it. Okay. Hi, Jill.
Morning.
Let's see, Patty's here, Linda. Mimi's coming. She didn't make it last time. Excuse me while I'm sidetracked trying to make sure I admit everybody. It's like really embarrassing when the 27 people are in the waiting room and I'm chatting. This is going to be a good program today. Let's see. I'm going to go to gallery view. Good morning, Linda, Nancy. Lee's here. Well, his mugshot's here. Tia, is it Tia? You're not muted.
Tanya. It's
Huh?
Tanya.
Tanya.
It's Tanya.
Jill. One of the things that I've heard a lot of, Amy, is the she, her, hers, using the pronouns. And I've heard a lot of people, mainly in the old boy network or the, older people say, well, why bother? Isn't it obvious? And that's not the point, which I realize, but maybe you can talk about that as well.
Sure.
It's more of a making other people comfortable. It's just like, why do we use etiquette at a dinner table when we're in public? It's not for us, it's to make other people feel comfortable. Bev Walker's here with her mask on. I'm going to give it another minute. Oh, it's 5 after 10. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just keep my eye on this.
Chris.
Oh, you want to be a co-host, I bet, don't you?
Yeah, that way I can share my screen.
Yes. There you go. Okay. Let's see. Couple more things. Now, Amy, are you still on the other side of the hill?
I am in Monument Valley, Utah, so I will show you what I see behind me. Can you see?
Oh, monuments. Beautiful.
Yeah, we woke up to a glorious sunrise early this morning, and we will do a little bit more touristy things later today.
Well, I'm impressed that you agreed to make it, even though
No,
you have to tear yourself away from that view.
we are taking full advantage of being able to work remotely this week. So we are remote.
Isn't that nice that we learned to do that and we're so comfortable doing it?
Yeah. So lucky that we can.
Okay, I'm going to keep my eye on the participants so that I can let them in, but I'm going to go ahead and get the meeting started since we only have an hour. It's going to be a great meeting. We're going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is something you asked for at our last poll. It was a very popular choice. And of course, I thought of Aimee right away, who's become a DEI sort of expert in our area and in Rotary. So, and she's continuing to learn. She's the district governor elect of our district, which means that next year she will be district governor. Oh, Mimi's having trouble getting in. I'm gonna admit you. And she serves as the Chief Executive Officer at Direction Service, which is a multi-program family support nonprofit serving Lane County. And additionally, she provides training and facilitation on a variety of subjects, including positive youth development, advocacy, facilitation, organizational development, systems design, equity, poverty, trauma-informed approaches, inclusive practices, and ethics, and a partridge in a pear tree. So she covers a lot. And I'm really excited, Aimee, that you agreed to come and talk to us about this, which is not just something that a lot of clubs say, well, we can't really diversify. We don't have that many different demographics in our area. There's more to diversity than just race. So with that, I'll give you Aimee.
Thank you. I am pleased to tell you that I just left Tucson, where we were at the governor-elect training and then followed up by our zone institute. And at that zone institute, they convened a panel, and some of the members of the DEI task force that Rotary International has created were there, along with other members of our zone who presented and had some great question and answer sessions. So this is very timely and an appropriate conversation for us to be having. Many of us are talking about DEI in our work, and we're talking about it socially around what's happening in our country and around the world. But I think that the imperative for us is to think about that in the context of membership. So I'm really glad that this is the venue in which we're having this conversation. Rotary isn't growing in North America. We are losing members as fast as we bring them in. And there's a lot of reasons why. And this is only one of the many multifacets of strategies that we're talking about. But also, Rotary is aging. And if we think about the youth of our nation and the youth of our communities and including them and growing them in Rotary, we have to think about the diversity within that group. So Rotary tracks two key pieces around diversity, and I'm hoping this will change over time. Right now, they look at the diversity of gender and the diversity of age. And that was very important to Rotary 30 years ago or 35 years ago when women were just starting to be included. And we are just getting to a place where we will have our first international president who will be a woman this coming year. And that's very exciting, but it's also, maybe a little bit sad that it's taken this long. What I appreciate about Jennifer Jones, and she's quick to say this isn't about her being a woman leader. This is about her being a leader who just happens to be a woman. However, I think that it is important that she's a woman. And I think that it's really cool that my daughters and my granddaughters will see women in leadership. And that's one of the things I keep hearing from folks, is that they don't see themselves represented in our Rotary clubs. And if you don't see yourself, then it's not something that you're inclined to join very often. Many of us get tired of being the first at something, or the only, and we also don't want to be the expert on any of this. And so, this is an important conversation, and this is the stuff I'm hearing a lot. People talking about, I don't see that we have diversity in our community. And that's sad to me, because diversity isn't just about race, as Chris was saying. It's around ability and marital status. And so what I appreciate is that there are now clubs that have been chartered for LGBTQ communities because they didn't see themselves represented in clubs, or they weren't able to be comfortable with that status in our clubs. There are clubs that are cause-based and that are looking at affinity groups that are starting to be a part of Rotary. So that the diversity in that is huge. I do want to help direct folks to Rotary International's statement on diversity, and I have lost it. Window closed. Hold on one second. If you Google Rotary DEI, it comes right up. So Rotary has committed to this work and has issued a statement. But what I think is really important is that you hear from them why this is important. And one of the things that they say is that if we are going to realize our vision of a world where people unite and take action, we have to pay attention to what they bring and who they are, what their backgrounds are, what their age is, what their ethnicity is, their race, their color, their disability, the way they learn, the way they practice faith, their socioeconomic status, their culture, their marital status, the languages they speak, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, and the ways that they think differently. And that's what I love about Rotary. I'm in a very diverse club. It feels like one of the most diverse clubs in our community. It has a lot of folks from other countries and a big international focus. That was important to me because I do nonprofit work locally, and my club helps me lift my head up and look around the world and think about the impact that we have beyond our community. I also think it's really important for us to realize that it's 50% women, which is incredible, not the norm. And it also has a pretty diverse group of ages. I'm not the youngest member of my club. And once upon a time, that was probably very likely. I think that you brought up the she, her, hers thing that you see in my name. That's our agency's practice. It's considered best practice to identify your pronouns, especially for those who are working with youth. To assume how someone identifies isn't a good choice anymore. To assume someone's gender isn't necessarily a good way to interact with the world. People identify lots of different ways. And if we want to be inclusive and welcome them, we need to consider that. I'm really passionate about equity, and I would never call myself an expert. I'm going to show you a video. I showed this when we had our forum a few, maybe it was over a year ago now. I'll show you this quick graphic. This is something that I think it's really important because our country's done a lot of work around equality and making sure that everybody has a seat at the table. That's not the same thing as equity. If everybody has a seat, that doesn't mean we all can reach the same things. And so equity is really about making sure that we all have what we need to be successful. So, someone taller may not need as many steps. There's also a very famous graphic you may have seen. I've showed it before as well. Well, maybe I will show it to you. And I love this one because it goes beyond equality and equity into inclusion. And it's changing the fence. It's changing the context that I think is really meaningful in this picture. And that's what I think we're having to think about in Rotary clubs. We have to change the way that we've done things forever. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And so when we think about who we recruit or how we recruit and what's accessible about our clubs, this is where the rubber meets the road. And I've been a part of some really tough conversations where folks have said things like, if you can't afford to be in Rotary, you probably aren't meant to be a Rotarian. And I'm really sad when I hear folks say that, because that economic barrier, that economic status is part of what we need to address as well. There's a lot of folks that are early in their careers who may not have the means to do some of the things we do in Rotary, but we have the energy and the time and the passion and often skills. So that sweat equity, as it were, is just as valuable to our clubs as the financial contribution. And when I joined Rotary, I was really, really passionate about this. And I would say, this isn't your dad's Rotary Club. And then I realized pretty quickly that I was hanging out with some really great people who were in their dad's Rotary clubs. And I needed to change my way of thinking about that to embrace all folks, even our elders, who bring a lot to the table and who have taught me much and have mentored me. And, you know, as an AG, I was working with a sitting judge, and I do law and advocacy work for special education. She was invaluable to me as a mentor in my career. So I think that we need to value our elders and what they bring, including their financial means. And our elders need to value our youth who bring their passion and dedication and maybe not their money. And as we age and grow in our careers, our economic situations develop. I am a much more generous donor than I was when I started. And I also have maybe a little less time. So my financial donations have increased, rather than always participating in every service project. So I think all these things are important. And Rotary's given us a lot of tools to do this assessment and thinking about what is in our club and what's in our community. And so I could spend a lot of time just sort of preaching, and I don't want to preach because I'm not an expert, and I'm a white woman who's middle class and has a lot of privilege. But my goal is to unpack that privilege to figure out how I can help others access the same opportunities and be a part of this amazing group of people. I started talking about my club and I lost my train of thought. My club is very diverse, and as I was saying, and we don't all agree and we don't all vote the same, and we have different priorities. But what I love about Rotary is it brings all those people to the table, and we're united in a common goal of helping our community and the world be a better place. I also trust that those folks come with a set of values and integrity that, while they may think and practice them differently than I do, I know that they're concerned with fairness. I know they're concerned with honesty, and equity and inclusion are built into those things. So I feel like we're starting closer together than we give ourselves credit for when we start to have these DEI conversations, and that there's more that we agree about than what we disagree. And one of the biggest things that folks are saying right now is that DEI is political. And you're right. Politicians have made aspects of diversity and equity and inclusion part of their political process. We as Rotarians don't have to participate in it from that angle. We can participate it in terms of, how do we bring people to the table? How do we build relationships that help us reach our goals of peace and economic prosperity in the world, that end disease and increase opportunities for education? That's really what it's about. And so who in your community isn't at the table? Who in your community would like to be at the table? And what do we have to do to make that table accessible, literally and metaphorically? So let's talk. What are folks thinking, and what are you curious about in terms of how this impacts membership?
One of the things we had, Aimee, we had a person from Rotary International who works with diversity, equity, and inclusion come and speak to us last year. And one of the take-home messages I got from that I think is something for us all to keep in mind is the inclusion part. And this spoke to me about the inclusion of the members we already have, because a lot of times we think of DEI as a recruiting tool or but if you think about it, an involving tool. What do your committees look like? What does your board look like? Of the membership you have, is everyone equally engaged? And I know in my club, Southtown, we have a lot of younger professional members, but they're not engaged. We don't see them as often because the programs and the social events and things we put on are are put on by and geared to baby boomers. So, rethinking what we're doing makes a difference in how long we keep our members at retention. So I just wanted to throw
Right.
that out as something to bounce off you guys. And you can go ahead and unmute yourself so you can chime in. Maybe the kitty wants to chime in.
Christine, let me echo that just a little bit. I was sitting in one of the meetings. Aimee, you may have been there. And one of our past district governors was in the meeting, and this was the subject. And she brought up something that kind of hit me hard. And she said, most clubs need, before they can even start working on this, need to look internally and even at their own boards and realize their boards never change, and they have the same shadow leadership looking over their clubs that won't allow certain change to happen. And she was suggesting that the first thing any club can do is just like start to work through that, get rid of those, that stigma. Anyways, that hit me hard as a way of like where clubs can just start today, because the issue has to start within the club to be able to extend out.
That's exactly right, Lee. I appreciate you saying that. And this is something we've been talking about within my own organization, right? We want to be employing best practice. We want to be more inclusive and equitable in our approach to staff. We want a diversity among our board and our leadership. And we have to sort of unpack why that hasn't happened, and what are some of the barriers to that. And also, I think as somebody who's hanging around a lot of people doing this work, I didn't really fully understand when folks were talking about deinstitutionalizing things, or how that institutionalization of racism looks in our community, because I don't spend a lot of time in places where I see that. And so what are the unknown or unobserved or implicit sort of ways that that's happening is something that I've found very interesting. And we could bring those things into speakers. I participated in a training with Habitat for Humanity, and they talked about how segregation has really impacted the Black people in our country, and over time how that's made it so that there was bigger class divide and created the poverty and ghetto pieces of our communities that I didn't fully understand, and how there are still deeds in my community of Eugene that are written that say that the homes cannot be sold to people of color. That's still happening in 2021. We have to make changes. But to not even know that that's happening, how can we make the change? So that's part of what I'm thinking Rotarians need to have these conversations about what's happening within our clubs that we don't even realize are causing barriers. And we know that people are coming in and they're going right back out the door. Why is that? And, there are some really tangible things that they will tell you when they leave about how they didn't feel included or it didn't fit for them. And I think that's really meaningful for us to consider.
Other comments? Unmute yourselves. So if you think of something, thank you.
I'm curious about the maybe some suggestions or examples of ways you can make Rotary more affordable, particularly to young families or people from different socioeconomic classes. Because I think our current club structure, like most of ours, if you can't make the meetings or you can't afford lunch, are there ways we can work with that creatively within the Rotary structure?
I know that when I started a satellite club at a retirement community, which was not it was a nice shishi retirement community. So it's not the social economic demographic that you're thinking of. It's not young, it's not lower income, but they have 2 meetings a month, and they have them they have them at 4 o'clock, but they could just as easily have them at 5:30 or 6. Like Aimee's club, they have their meetings at a restaurant. You can go in at 6 o'clock for their meeting. You can order wine if you want it. You can order dinner if you want it, but it's not mandatory. So it's not, You don't have to. So there's two ideas in that satellite model that I think would work for any club. You don't have to require every week participation or attendance. We're kind of getting away from that perfect attendance model. I always thought that was kind of junior high when I joined Rotary back in the 80s. It's like, are you kidding? Perfect attendance? I haven't done perfect anything attendance since junior high. But we're kind of getting away from that as long as the participation's there in the projects, right, Aimee?
It's really about engagement, and clubs really have permission from RI to really do what they need to do to engage their membership. And attendance requirements being disbanded was one of the first steps for them to show that. There are still clubs who really pride themselves in their attendance, and I think that's great. I think that's awesome. But, my generation is now prioritizing mental health and prioritizing mental health days. And so perfect attendance in school is no longer such a thing to celebrate, because we want folks to take care of themselves. We want them to stay home when they're sick. We want them to also practice wellness. So that means when you're not sick, but you need a break. So we're trying to normalize that, and attendance sort of flies in the face of that. So we really want to shift the focus to how you engage and how you participate. And I like that clubs are looking different. I'm hearing about clubs that meet once a month for a social and once a month for a service project. And they rotate leadership around the leadership of those projects so that everybody's engaged at some level within their club. And I think that's incredible. And often those clubs look like young families, and they involve their kids in their service projects. And, my club is a dinner club, like Chris was saying, and you are welcome to bring your children. In fact, they are treated like stars when they do come. And I really appreciated that over the years, being able to feel comfortable having littles or middles at the table with us. But not every club is appropriate for that. And I think it's okay for us to support people to engage in the club that fits. And so one of the best things that ever happened to me was being a part of the duck race, because I got to build relationships in all of the different clubs in Eugene. And so when someone talks to me about being interested in joining Rotary, I can take them to visit all the different clubs and feel that I can connect them to people who will help them feel comfortable visiting. And I don't need them to join my club. I just want them to join Rotary. That doesn't mean that I don't get to see them. That doesn't mean they don't get to visit my club. There's also passport clubs, which I think are really cool, where you get to visit and not necessarily belong to a specific club. I think that's amazing. There's just a lot of opportunity. And what I'm hearing at Zone and what I'm hearing over and over again is, don't get rid of the no's, figure it out. Like, the rules are being set aside so that we really want to grow and ensure a future. We don't want this incredible service organization to disappear. I think about all that it's accomplished, and we just can't let it go.
Thank you. And I know there is a struggle. Our club is trying to have one meeting a month that's an evening meeting. And Mimi, I see your hand up. I'll call on you in a second. But our club wanted to have a one meeting a month that was an evening meeting. Well, we're struggling with that people didn't want to do that. So now what we're doing is we're having that same day, we're having a regular lunch meeting, and then there's a meeting in the evening, and it's not working real well, but we're trying. It's not going to be a one and done kind of situation. We have, as leaders of our clubs and Rotary, we have to keep trying. Mimi.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you, Aimee. It's been awesome listening to this and very helpful. So we have a club that's celebrating its 100th year, and our morning club is and us are merging, and so it's very exciting. And so we're trying to decide, we're filed the papers for the merger, but in the planning of this, I think it's great that we can offer our members that they have a choice of going to a morning meeting or a noon meeting. And some of the board members feel like, no, it's got to be one meeting for all. And I'd like your input on that.
Thanks for the question. I actually heard some examples of how that looks in other clubs at Zone, and there are clubs who do meet differently, and there's still one club. I think sometimes people have a fear that if we're meeting separately, there's this thing that my kids say that's FOMO, sort of the fear of missing out, and we're afraid that you're going to do something that's different than what we're doing in the morning. Some clubs have talked about how it was difficult to book speakers who would speak to both clubs, and so their content looked different. And I actually think that's kind of amazing because, when we were talking at the beginning, not all of the speakers are relative to everybody, right? Or relevant to everyone. So something that might be about aging may not be as relevant to somebody who's just beginning their career. It doesn't mean it's not important and it shouldn't be included in the club. And I've sat through a number of things that I don't resonate with, but I'm in it for something else. That the program isn't the whole reason I come. But there are people who come to Rotary because of the programs. And so how do we manage those things? And I think we're going to have to be creative and we're going to have to try it. We're also going to have to be okay if we have clubs spin off and break away. I've been thinking more and more about the leadership opportunities in Rotary and how we don't really capitalize that in recruitment and retention. And as a nonprofit leader, I belong to a couple of organizations, and once a month we have programming that's really about the edification and growth in our industry. And wouldn't that be amazing if Rotary was providing that for us? And as an employer, I would pay for my staff to participate in programs that help them be better leaders in our organization. And so, maybe there is, that's an interest-based club coming, that's a nonprofit leader club, and all of our programming is around that. And it would be a great way to engage in supporting our community because we would have insight into all the service that's needed in the nonprofit world. So,
Right.
there's a lot of different ways to manage that or encounter it. And Chris, I like that you are taking risks and trying new things. We call it failing forward. This is the only way we learn is by trying something. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. And we have to be graceful about it. We have to be okay that people are going to give us feedback we don't like. And we can't be so attached to our own ideas and ways of doing things that it creates additional barriers when we're trying these new things.
Right. Well, you think of a baby learning to walk, and we've all been there. Can't remember it very well at
Right.
all, but it didn't work the first try, right? You stumble, you fall on your bum, and you get up and you try again because the impetus to learn and grow for that baby is that they want to get to what's over there, and there's something better over there than where they are now, and there's something better out there for Rotary than where we are now. We just got to get back up off our bum and keep trying. Bev Walker, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to say we got rid, well, first of all, I want to say we have 67% female
Woot, woot.
in our stats. And we have 2 guys in the pipeline right now, so we'll bump that up. We have about 66 members and only 48 are counted in our statistics. I don't know why, I gotta look into that. But one of the things that I think we've gotten a lot of membership lately is that we have a project, Foundry Village, transitional housing, that we're building. And so we're getting a lot of people in that are concerned about housing, lots of nonprofits in our membership, and people that have just volunteered in those projects. And so I think that's adding to our membership. And we got rid of our attendance requirement. Some people, we still count because some people like to have that 100% attendance for 20 years, past 20 years or whatever. So we still count, do attendance. And we just started a sponsorship for a confidential dues waiver And we haven't used it yet, but that's one of the things that we've just incorporated into our membership. And a younger Rotarian membership, a discount. So those are the things that seem to be working.
Thank
I
you for
like-
touching on the discount thing. I wanted to encourage other people that are here in attendance to let's go back, circle back to that question about what can we do financially for people that are maybe in the lower income range. Maybe they have young kids, you know, and they just don't have a bunch of money. What have clubs tried or thought of that just might work?
I really like the dues waiver that you were talking about. I think that's one of the first barriers. And my club actually experimented with that, and they just offered it to everybody so that folks didn't have to apply, because sometimes the application itself can be a barrier. We don't necessarily want folks to know. And so what they said is that we're going to waive dues for the first 2 years of your membership. And if you're in the position to have paid those dues, why don't you just make a donation to the foundation? And I thought that was a really nice approach. They brought in 2 folks, one of whom was a teacher that I sponsored, and I knew she couldn't afford it. She had just transitioned to our community and bought a house and didn't have extra. So it was a benefit to her, but I don't think she would have filled out an application. And so just having it be offered to her as a new member was a really nice gift. And there are international dues and district dues that we have to pay. So there's a minimum cost that sometimes can, if we just discounted enough to cover that might be enough. We wouldn't have to completely waive the dues. And there's just a lot of different ways to think about those things. We also need to think about the other costs, the meal costs. I feel, like I said, very fortunate that I don't have to participate in the meals. So I could just come and leave and go home and eat, or eat before, and it's no big deal. And I've seen people actually bring small things like meal bars and things and smoothies into the meeting, and the restaurant doesn't mind. We generate enough revenue with our wine and beer purchases, I'm sure, to keep. I think we got them through the recession, but many clubs have to pay for their room use, and so do we consider where we have our club meetings so that isn't a barrier? And things like that. There are other costs, the requirement of participating in the duck race and selling tickets or buying tickets and things like that all added up. And so we try to be really upfront about some of these things that you're asked. You're going to hear about Happy Dollars every week. You're going to hear about this thing that we do every year. You're going to need to come to our annual auction and participate. So there are costs that we don't realize are implicit in being a member. And how do we address those as well as the dues?
And our reputation is that we're, that you're going to join, you're going to have to pay Happy Dollar. They have fines. There are hundreds of dollars in fines. I did a survey of younger potential and current members when I was in the Newport Club. And that was one of the things that read it loud and clear, is it's our reputation. Whether it was right or wrong wasn't the issue. If that's what they thought, then, that influenced their decision. How many of you have a meal included in your dues? Can you raise your hands? Jill does. Tanya. That's it.
Well, Christine, I was going to say, we in our club, we did up until COVID, and like everything COVID forward is a reset. Like the mindset is we just got to think different, be different. Like whatever we did in the past doesn't have to be going forward. So our club hasn't started meeting back in person yet. So the answer is, I don't know for my club.
Our club, the reason we have included it in our membership is that the restaurant where we meet has to bring in staff, which before the staff was already there. Now the restaurant doesn't open until 4 p.m. and we meet at 7. So because of that, I never eat breakfast that early, but I still pay for the meals, and really I'm paying for the staff. So that's a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, it's tough because we have to consider the restaurants too that
Yes.
we're going to. And I know that I've talked to some older Rotarians, and I shouldn't just throw them all in the old category, but their mentality was that they should be glad that we're coming. They should be glad that we're coming to their restaurant and wanting to pay minimum dollar for our lunch because we're Rotarians and we're so special. And, from a restaurant point of view and a business manager's point of view, that doesn't cut it. Yeah, they have overhead, they have food costs, they have spoilage, they have staff, they have insurance, electricity, blah, 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 blah. And we want them, or we should want them, to make a living. So, is Aimee's club's model a little bit more realistic these days? Should we not, if we didn't have a mandatory lunch, but we just had people go and order their food and get served if they wanted it, then I think that's a little bit easier for restaurant management to work with than to assume that it's a buffet style lunch and they've got to cook all this food. And then now you've got to guarantee a minimum number of people, which, if you're like our club, our minimums that we've squeezed them down because we're not getting the attendance. And this was before COVID. So I mean, we're not struggling in a vacuum. The people around us and the businesses around us are having that issues too. But what can we do? I love Aimee's model that you go in and you're just like a person that might walk in off the street and want to either have dinner or not. And they're already planning for that, right?
Yeah, there's no charge for the room use, which is pretty unusual. And so I think that, I think that's not an easy thing to replicate, but I only can see what I can see from my perspective. And so part of what I've appreciated about having these conversations is inviting folks who've left or folks who are interested in having be a part of our clubs, give us feedback and maybe help us think from different perspectives. Your club meets in a really great location, Chris, and has really great food. But if you maybe heard from somebody else, there might be other options. I don't know what they are, but we have to be open to hearing them, and we have to figure out how we can get that information in ways that we're not currently getting. One of the things that somebody recommended, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say that one of the things somebody recommended was having folks visit, because there are some traditions in our club also around meals, invocations. Some clubs pray. Some clubs say the pledge, some do the four-way test. There's a lot of different things that we do that also really benefit from that outside perspective to what that looks like to folks.
Jill, you
Sorry,
started
I would have put my hand up, but I'm on the video.
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
also on
There
on
you
my
are.
phone, and I can't put my hand up from my phone. I mean, maybe
Who
I
are
can,
you
but
and
I'm
where
not
are you
that
from?
technologically. My name is Janelle Jurgen. I am from Medford. I am the president-elect for the Rogue After 5 Rotary Club. So I'm really excited to be here because we have an interest to grow and just to serve our community
Good.
a little bit differently than we have. We actually lost our meeting place, and we had a very similar model to what Aimee is describing, where we had a nice pizza place. It was a ton of fun to go to a Rotary meeting at a pizza place and have our spot in the back where we would have our guests come and we would get together, and it's a real family environment, and we really like that. Right now, we're looking to replace our meeting place. And so we just sat down and made a list of things that are important to us and our members and the people who come and visit. And as we go out and check out new venues, we're looking at the cost of meals, and we don't have a meal plan. You come and you eat or you don't eat. It's up to you. The cost of meals, does the restaurant need a minimum? We're looking at smaller, what I would call maybe mom and pop or independent restaurants and independent venues who may need to make, $250 or $300 or sometimes more than that. And just making sure that we have a plan to address those needs so that we can average the right amount of money for that business over time. And it's not particularly difficult, but it is a little bit outside of the box. Where we've got venues set up through the end of the year, and hopefully we're able to find one that will work for us. We're also meeting in person and online. We have a group of members who are not comfortable coming back in person. And so we're doing our best to make sure that the venues that we go to have adequate access to Wi-Fi and we can get our Zoom meeting up and going and everybody can hear. And we may continue that model moving forward for our members who are not comfortable getting back or who have a hard time getting off work on time sometimes.
Sure.
But it's been really well worth the effort so far to be out and to be seen. I really just wanted to say that I appreciate the reframe on engaging people. And that's one of the themes that I hear coming up from our club is, you know, we're not the big money club. We're not the club where the guys walk in the suits and it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars. We've got a couple of those here in the area. It's going to cost you a lot of money to go. We don't want to be that kind of club. We want to show up and work, and we want to be seen in the community as being the place where if you've got a need, we're going to come and we're going to fix that need, or we're going to address that, we're going to be present for our community. And so really thinking about how to repackage what we do about engagement and not just about your ability to come to our meetings every week, although we love our meetings every week and we are enjoying each other's company now that we're back together.
Thank you. Good points.
Awesome.
Our satellite club doubled their size during COVID. And you know, you go, wow, that's pretty cool, right? Well, the way they did it and their mentality, I'm going to steal, because every one of their meetings, programs, events, fundraisers are open to the public. Every single one of them. They're not just Rotarian onlys. You got to be in our club to come to our thing. They let anybody come, and there's absolutely no pressure to join. It's not like a recruitment thing, right? But what happens? People come and they see maybe a program on the history of the American flag, or they come and they're doing something for the Lane County Food Share, or they come and they're doing a fundraiser for a scholarship, and here's the kid that's getting the money, and they've got a real tight relationship with that person. They get interested and they ask, hey, well, how do I join this group? And that's how they've doubled their size. And I think Rotary could take a lesson from these 85-year-olds who left our club, if you want to look at it that way, to form their own satellite, which is real scary to a lot of clubs that, aren't we going to lose members if these people were having trouble driving to lunch meetings anyway. They're all in their 80s. So we would have lost them totally. But instead of that, we let them, they're having their own meeting underneath our umbrella. So we administer the dues and all that kind of stuff. But they just went off and did their own model, which we gave them enough latitude to do that. And I'm going, whoa, we can learn some things from this. And I'm looking to set up a professional Rotary satellite. I used to call it young professional, but now that I'm back working again, I'm thinking of it. We've kind of lost the networking part of what Rotary used to be. And Aimee, you brought up the leadership training. That's not what you called it, but the developing leaders aspect. We've kind of lost those two things because as baby boomers get older, they're just more interested in the social event. And, oh, let's have a potluck and visit, you know. Well, younger people and working people want to build those networks, and we need to get back into that business aspect, because that's really how we're going to survive in the future. Okay, I'm going to get back off that soapbox. Sorry.
It looks like somebody has their hand up. Nancy has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Unmute
Right.
yourself.
Oh, thank you. I'm Nancy. I'm in Ashland. And I just wanted to say about the meals. For us, we used to have a catered meal, and it's made an incredible difference in the affordability for some of our other members without having that cost. So we've really opened it up and made it flexible, and we have a caterer who people can order from, and the food would be there if they want it. But I think people really want flexibility is what I'm hearing around the meal situation. So it's just made things a lot more affordable for some of our other members who the cost might have been prohibitive to have joined before. And not with Rotary, but with another organization that I've worked with, one of the things that we developed was a scholarship program. So some folks in the organization being willing to donate some money to a fund for people who can't afford to join, and then we could use that to apply that to members who can't afford the dues and the fees. And there was a lot of folks in this organization who were willing to do that. And then that worked out well. So that's just another thing that I've done in the past that is a possibility.
That's awesome. And Nancy, and I'm sorry I didn't see your hand up. It's just bright yellow there in the corner of your screen. I don't know how I missed that, but thanks, Bev, for making me aware of that. What do you do for lunch now?
So we have a local caterer who they get an email every week, and with what the options are for the meal for that week. And then if they send an email to the caterer shows up with the amount for those people with their names on it on that day. And so people have the option of having food there or not, or they can stop at the grocery store, or they can, because there's a lot of people who don't want to eat during the meal, during the meeting. And so that seems to be working pretty well right now.
Great idea.
I think it's amusing how COVID's forced the issue that was already there. We all struggled with how to keep everybody happy with lunches, and we probably always will. And I say lunches, but it could be any meal, and whether to include it or not, and how to deal with that. So who else has a different way of approaching the whole meal issue? Because it's, people want to eat when they get together, or some of us do. Jill.
Oh, I don't have my hand up.
You made a noise, your screen lit up, so I thought you were going to say something.
But just as long as you called on me, there are people in our club that expect the meal. I mean, that's part of their inclusion in the group. They come, they share food with their Rotarian friends. And then there are others who don't care to. But as I mentioned before, our main issue is staff. We have to pay for the people to come in. We don't have the option of catering at 7 a.m. in Jacksonville. So
yeah,
we tried other venues. We meet at the Bella. Jerry's a member of our club and he wants us to stay. So we're kind of stuck right now.
Tanya, what do you guys do?
They have the meals we have our meetings at the country club, and I think we get like a couple of selections. But I think, like you said, when I don't always want to eat, and I don't always want to eat that type of food, but you kind of feel stuck in the middle, that if you go, that's the expectation that you're going to eat that.
Yeah, there's a lot of dietary restrictions anymore. How about you, Patty?
Prior to COVID, we had a buffet and you could eat or not. Now during COVID, we have meetings like every other month in person or a blend, and the food is catered and you can eat or not eat. And that's always pretty much been an option in our club. It's not required that you eat. In the past, you had to pay like a certain amount just to sit there and have coffee and dessert, but we've done away with that. And I wanted to say earlier, our membership kind of every year kind of comes with 2 free meals, one where we do a social picnic, generally in the fall, and then the holiday party, which I've been trying to successfully get changed to the holiday party instead of being called the Christmas party, which has been a struggle if you go back to the topic we were talking about.
Yes.
Inclusion, but those habits are really, really hard to break. I'm at a college, and so we live DEI in our world. It's a strategic priority that we're planning around for the next 5 years on our campus. But trying to bring that to my Rotary Club, which turns 100, and it has been a struggle for me to always feel like I'm the one that has to champion this work everywhere I go.
Well, a lot of times we feel that way, and you know what? It's important that we do it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they used to say, I think Jane Fonda used to say, feel the burn, you know, just do it anyway. Barbara, you're muted and I can't see you. I see a beautiful picture. Are you there? Would you like to add anything? Well, then
There,
I'm gonna.
I'm unmuted. We've had a flood at the house, and my house is just, it's an incredible mess.
Oh.
We have just started going back to in person. We were a morning breakfast club. We are shifting to an evening club, and we were just having appetizers available for people. We've embedded the cost of the meal into the dues, just because for those folks whose companies and organizations pay for their membership, then it's all embedded that way, and it makes it a whole lot easier for those folks to participate with the meal. And it's been a point of conversation. Because we're very, very rural, we don't have a lot of choices in where we can meet. I mean, there's not like, there's just, other than the restaurant we're at, that's it.
Where are you?
Eagle Point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're kind of tied to that location and some meals. But like I said, we're doing some shifting to an evening to make it more accommodating for families. Because if you're trying to get kids off to school in the morning, you're not going to come to a 7 o'clock meeting. So, but right now we're struggling with membership, period. Again, we're very rural and been pretty hit pretty hard by all of the shifts that everyone else is being impacted by.
Right. It's funny, humorous to me that we started out by talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the common theme running through this is food. But you know what? That's something that everybody's interested in. You know, food does bring people together. And so how we approach creatively our food situation will help Rotary in the future. Aimee, why don't you take it back over and say a few words to wrap us up, and we will thank you profusely.
Thanks, Chris. You started the wrap up with what you were saying. We got to the place where I think it's an easy place for us to see where we could be more inclusive and where we have to consider lots of different needs and priorities. But I think the job for us in doing this is, where are the other points that we could be, thinking about and having conversations and I think we have to ask more questions, and I think we have to approach this with curiosity rather than stomping into the middle of the room and telling folks this is what they need to do to be more accessible. I've never been successful as an advocate being able to come back to a table once I've set it on fire. And so sometimes we need to flip tables over and we need to start a fire. I'm not saying that that's not appropriate when we're doing justice work, but I think within a group of people who we respect and have a lot in common, we could start by just taking small steps and having conversations. I think we have to ask people who aren't at the table what they need so that they can be at the table, or what they want from a table. Do they even want a table? And we've been talking about this a lot in terms of social service. We keep talking about giving people fish versus teaching them to fish, but what if they don't even like fish? And so, we need to have those conversations from different ways. And if you want a younger club, if you want a more diverse club, then you need to talk to people who are different. You need to talk to people who are young, and then we need to also help young people see the benefit of being in clubs with their elders. Like I was saying before, it could be your dad's Rotary Club that you really enjoy being a part of. And it could be that you need your own club full of young people, and that's okay. Maybe you need a club that's focused on networking and leadership, and maybe you need a club that's rolling up their sleeves, doing the deep and dirty work. All of those things are important. All of those things make us Rotarians, but
True.
it's a conversation, and sometimes it's also being okay with some things that you aren't interested in. So I participate in things that aren't my favorite thing to do because I care about the people who it is important to. So, but that comes after relationship, and how do we build relationship, and how do we include people in that? That's
Well,
important too.
so true. The world needs Rotary. That's why we have to continue our struggle to help Rotary survive, because it's so important with the world. So when I got this little phrase out of a workshop I just went to, because I love attending those kinds of things. She said, don't get furious, get curious. So when we're dealing with people that maybe aren't at the table, or we don't agree with, it's real easy to get furious with them because they're wrong, right? No, let's get curious and ask those questions and see where we can meet halfway. And we can make the world a better place, and it's really an important task to do that. And we can start right here at our Rotary Club. So I'm going to wrap up the meeting. Aimee, will you send me your 2 slides that you sent out? Because I want to share those with when I do the wrap up, and I will send everyone the video link on YouTube for the video of this session. So thanks for coming. Next month, we have another, whatever was the next topic on the list. It'll be a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
again. Thanks again, Aimee.
Bye. Thank you.
Have fun today.